Welcome to the shadow frequency, where the veil between this world and the next grows thin, and the things that whisper in the dark are given voice. From the cryptic candlelit studios, deep in the Indiana forests, your host, Matt Wilson, and his spectral producer, Juniper Ravenwood, unearth the forbidden, the forgotten, and the fearsome. So, still your heart, dim the light, and listen closely. For once you tune into the shadow frequency, you may never tune out.
Welcome back, my shadowy friends, to the Shadow Frequency. I'm Juniper, and tonight we're returning to a quiet Kentucky farmhouse where the windows were thin, the guns were loaded, and something with enormous glowing eyes allegedly spent an entire night watching the people inside. There's something especially unsettling about a familiar story that becomes stranger the closer you examine it. You think you know what happened. You reopen the folder and suddenly the comfortable version begins falling apart in your hands. Tonight I'm pulling out a case we first visited briefly in March of 2025. This is the Hopkinsville Goblins revisited, the night the farmhouse fired back. On August 21st, 1955, a family outside Kelly, Kentucky claimed that small silver-clawed figures surrounded their farmhouse following the appearance of a brilliant object in the sky. Gunfire erupted, police raced to the property, newspapers transformed the creatures into little green men, and one terrifying night became a permanent part of American UFO folklore. But beneath the familiar story are conflicting witness accounts, changing descriptions, uncertain government records, and one detail that completely alters the encounter. The creatures never actually attacked anyone. Chris, I want to come to you first. When you hear that the witnesses fired repeatedly at those figures, yet the figures apparently never retaliated, what does that suggest to you?
That may be the creepiest part of the whole thing, June. If the creatures were there to harm the family, they had hours to do it. Instead, they appeared at windows, watched from trees, and kept coming closer with their hands raised. That sounds less like an invasion and more like observation, and I'm not sure that makes it any more comforting.
No, it really doesn't. An attacker can be understood. Something that simply stands outside and studies you is much harder to place. Matt, what stands out to you as we reopen this case?
The scale of the fear. 11 people fled their own home and brought a large police response back with them. Whatever caused that panic, it was real enough for those people that staying inside an armed farmhouse felt more dangerous than running into the night.
And once fear reaches that level, the darkness outside stops being empty. Every branch, every window, and every movement becomes a possible doorway. And with that, Matt, let's return to Kelly and find out what was waiting beyond the well.
You are tuned to the shadow frequency, where every whisper tells a story from beyond the veil. Hosted by Matt Wilson, produced by Juniper Ravenwood, with Chris Beach. The darkness continues.
Thank you, Juniper, because tonight's strange case feels less like opening an old file and more like opening a door somebody nailed shut 70 years ago. We first visited Kelly, Kentucky in March of 2025, but the shorter version leaves out what makes this story crawl into your skin. 11 people were packed into a crude 3-room farmhouse on Sunday night, August 21st, 1955, with no telephone, no radio, no television, and no easy escape from the dark around those thin walls. Glennie Langford was there with her children, her grown sons, their wives, Aline's brother, and visitors Billy Ray and June Taylor. Around 7 o'clock, Billy Ray stepped outside to draw water from the well. He looked southwest and saw a brilliant silvery object trailing colors like a rainbow. It passed overhead, seemed to pause, and descended into a gully several hundred feet away. When he rushed inside, the others laughed. Billy Ray was known to joke, and nobody else had seen the object. The evening might have swallowed it as another tall tale, until the dog began barking behind the house. stopped without warning, crawled beneath the floorboards, and refused to come back out. Billy Ray and Lucky Sutton went to the rear door. Beyond the spill of light, something small was moving toward them. It stood perhaps 3 feet tall, but its head looked too large, round, broad, and dominated by enormous yellow eyes. Points or oversized ears projected from either side. Its arms nearly brushed the ground, and its raised hands ended in hooked fingers. The surface was not green. That came later. Witnesses remembered silver, metallic, pale, reflective, something wrapped in an unfamiliar skin. It approached with its hands lifted, not charging, simply coming closer. Billy Ray and Lucky backed inside, grabbed a .22 caliber rifle and a 20-gauge shotgun, then waited. At roughly 20 feet, they fired. The blast should have dropped anything made of flesh and bone. Instead, witnesses said the figure flipped backward, rolled through the air, and vanished without a cry, without blood, and without leaving anything behind. Before the men could decide whether they had hit it, another broad-eyed face rose at a window screen, watching from inches beyond the glass. The shot tore through the screen, and the face disappeared. Billy Ray stepped beneath the overhanging roof to look outside, and the people behind him screamed. A clawed hand was reaching down from above the doorway toward his hair. They dragged him backward, and Lucky rushed out, firing at the roof line. Another figure appeared in a maple tree. Someone shot at it too, but instead of crashing through the branches, it drifted downward slowly as though gravity had loosened its grip. It landed near a fence and moved away with a stiff, swaying gait. The legs barely bent. The arms hung impossibly low. Witnesses said the creatures seemed to brighten when shouted at or fired upon, and bullets produced a metallic ring like sound striking a bucket. I have something from the file, a reproduction of the Farmhouse plan published in the 1978 report Close Encounter at Kelly. 3 cramped rooms, windows on every side, doors opening into open country, and frightened people tracking figures at the rear entrance. Living room window, roof, maple tree, and edges of the yard. In a house that small, every new face would have felt closer than the last, and every blind corner offered another place for those yellow eyes to appear. For hours, the figures returned. Maybe there were 12 or 15, as newspapers later declared. Maybe there were only 2, circling and reappearing whenever the humans thought they were gone. Nobody inside could know. The women guarded the children while the armed men moved from opening to opening, shooting whenever a silver head appeared. Yet, here's a detail that changes the case. The beings never broke a window to enter. They never forced a door, displayed a weapon, or injured anyone. Their most threatening reported act was the hand lowering toward Billy Ray's hair. Glennie eventually pleaded with the men to stop shooting because, terrifying as the visitors were, they had not harmed anyone. Think about that. The family believed it was defending the farmhouse from an invasion, but from the yard, the scene might have looked different. Strange figures drawing close, perhaps curious, perhaps communicating with raised hands, while the house erupted with gunfire. Were the Suttons trapped inside with creatures hunting them? Or were the creatures trapped outside with terrified humans determined to kill anything that moved? By 11 o'clock, the family could no longer endure the watching. They ran for 2 vehicles and tore toward Hopkinsville. Picture the police station, doors flying open, women and children crying, men talking over one another about shining creatures that would not die. One man's pulse was reportedly near 140 beats per minute. Police Chief Russell Greenwell knew that these were not people who sought protection lightly. The possibility of an ongoing gun battle drew Hopkinsville officers, state troopers, sheriff's deputies, and military police from Fort Campbell, roughly 16 officers and some reconstructions back toward the farm. They found spent shell casings, torn screens, damaged windows, and bullet marks. They found no body, blood, footprints, or landing site. The search party spread through the fields, nerves so tight that when military policemen stepped on a cat's tail and it shrieked, Army men nearly opened fire. By around 2 in the morning, officers began leaving, satisfied that nothing remained outside. The farmhouse settled, the road emptied, and darkness returned to the windows. Then, sometime after 2:30, Glennie Langford looked toward her bedroom screen and saw a small silver figure standing there with both hands pressed against it. The police had searched the yard and declared it empty, but according to Glennie, the moment they left, the watchers came back.
That almost makes it feel deliberate, as though whatever was outside understood the difference between the family and the armed search party.
And imagine the police lights disappear down the road, the bedroom goes dark again, and then two little hands settle against the screen.
In the second half, we're going to examine what happened after sunrise, how newspapers manufactured the goblins we recognize today, what Project Blue Book actually did with the case, and whether owls, panic, or something far stranger surrounded that farmhouse. For now, Jupiter and Chris, I'll turn the shadows back over to you.
They kept firing into the darkness, but the darkness kept coming back. Whatever stood outside that farmhouse did not seem afraid of bullets or of the people holding the guns.
Matt, that image of the figure waiting until the police had gone before returning to Glennie's window may be one of the most unerring details we've ever pulled from the file. And I'm wondering what all of you listening are thinking right now. Were these things trying to enter the farmhouse? Or were they simply watching a group of frightened humans react to their presence? While you sit with that cheerful little thought, I'm handing things over to Chris.
Cheers, June. The raised hands are what keep bothering me. Whatever these things were, they kept approaching almost as though they wanted to be seen, and the farmhouse answered with gunfire. While you're listening, give the show a like and subscribe on whatever platform you're using. It really does help the algorithms find other strange souls like us. We're on Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, Rumble, and all the major podcast directories. You'll find every episode, companion blogs, merch, show notes, and all our platform links at shadowfrequencypodcast.com. You can also buy us a coffee there, or send an email or voice message that may appear in a future episode. Back to you, June.
Thanks, Chris. It's time to energize the spectrocosmic message materializer. The vacuum tubes are glowing. The brass antenna is twitching towards something beyond the ceiling, and the machine has just popped up, full of transmission smelling faintly of rain and motorway fumes. Let's unfold it before whatever sent it changes its mind. This one's from Clive in South Wales, who listens through Spotify. It says, "Hi, Juniper, Matt, and Chris. I usually listen on Spotify while crawling through the morning traffic between Swansea and Cardiff. Your episodes make the brake lights and roundabouts slightly less painful. Although hearing about glowing eyes beside the road does make me check the mirrors more often than I used to. The UFO cases are my favorites, especially the ones where the witnesses seem completely sincere, but the evidence refuses to give a straight answer. I also love the ancient mysteries because they leave you wondering how much history disappeared before anyone thought to write it down. Thanks for keeping the strange stories coming and for making the commute feel a little less ordinary. Keep one eye on the sky, Clive, South Wales." Clive, thank you for listening and for allowing us to make traffic in South Wales marginally more unsettling. The next time the cars stop moving and everyone ahead of you suddenly looks upward at the same moment, perhaps keep the doors locked and let somebody else investigate. You can send us your own story, comment, question, or unexplained experience at shadowpodcast@protonmail.com. And now, I'm turning things back over to Chris for tonight's Shadow News.
Cheers, June. Clive, I know that South Wales traffic well, and frankly, a line of hovering goblins might be the only thing capable of getting it moving again. Here's tonight's Shadow News. New evidence from an archaeological site in Oregon could dramatically reshape our understanding of when humans first arrived in the Americas. For many years, the accepted theory was that the continent's earliest inhabitants crossed over from Asia around 13,000 years ago. But discoveries at the Rimrock Draw rock shelter may push that timeline back to at least 18,250 years ago, several times older than the Egyptian pyramids. Researchers from the University of Oregon uncovered 2 stone tools made from orange agate, along with teeth from extinct camels and bison. Radiocarbon dating of the tooth enamel helped establish the remarkable age of the site. Oregon State University anthropologist Professor David Lewis says the findings also appear to support the oral histories of tribal nations in the region, many of which describe enormous floods, giant animals, and dramatic changes to the landscape thousands of years ago. The discovery suggests that early humans may have lived alongside North America's prehistoric megafauna far earlier than previously believed. That's tonight's Shadow News. June, I'll toss it back to you.
Thank you, Chris. I love discoveries like that because they remind us that history is not a finished book. It's a collection of damaged pages, missing chapters, and stories carried by people long before researchers arrive with carbon dating equipment. And perhaps the Hopkinsville case works the same way. Beneath the carnival images and the little green souvenirs, there may still be a human story waiting to be recovered. Matt, let's separate the creatures that appeared at the farmhouse from the goblins created after sunrise.
The police found shattered screens, spent shells, and 11 terrified witnesses. What they did not find was the thing that made an entire family abandon its home in the middle of the night.
Thanks, Juniper and Clive. Listening to this one while sitting in South Wales traffic might be the safest possible arrangement. Locked doors, plenty of witnesses, and no maple tree hanging over the car. Chris, that Oregon story is a perfect companion to tonight's case because it reminds us how quickly an accepted timeline can change when one stubborn piece of evidence refuses to fit. Back at the Sutton farmhouse, the official search has ended. The police convoy had faded down the road, and the family was left with the damage and the silence. Then Glennie saw the figure at her bedroom window. In a later written statement, she described something roughly 2.5 feet tall, round or silver, with its hands against the screen. Lucky fired again. The appearances reportedly continued until the final hour before sunrise, when the yard finally became still. Daylight should have clarified everything. Instead, it erased the creatures and exposed only the aftermath. Shell casings, holes, splintered frames, frightened people, and an empty stretch of Kentucky ground that offered no explanation for what had stood there all night. Nothing was captured, yet the story was about to become far more difficult to escape. Reporters, radio people, investigators, and curiosity seekers arrived almost immediately. Andrew Budd Ledwith, a local radio engineer and artist, interviewed witnesses and produced drawings from their descriptions. Some showed the same haunting features: large eyes, broad heads, pointed ears, long arms, raised hands, while others differed in proportions and body shape. That inconsistency matters, but so does the shared outline. Now I'm pulling a second item from the file, a reproduction of the Kentucky New Era headline, "Story of Spaceship 12 Little Men Probed Today." That headline did enormous work, and a confusing night involving an uncertain number of silver figures became a spaceship siege involving 12 little men. The press pushed the count toward 12 or 15. Silver became green. Repeated sightings of perhaps 2 beings became an organized force. The family's fear became a carnival attraction, and when crowds began trampling the property, the Suttons charged some visitors for access and photographs. That decision followed them for decades as proof of a hoax, even though the attention brought ridicule, trespassing, and humiliation rather than easy wealth. The creature we remember was not simply seen at Kelly. It was assembled afterward from testimony, sketches, headlines, souvenirs, and the public appetite for a monster. This is where we need one grounded challenge, and the strongest is the meteor and owl explanation. Billy Ray may have seen a meteor descend beyond the trees, sincerely believing it landed. Later, a great horned owl or several owls could have been disturbed near the farmhouse. Think through the resemblance. Huge reflective glowing eyes, prominent ear tufts, talons, pale feathers, catching a lantern beam, wings hanging like long arms, and the ability to glide silently from a branch. An owl dropping with its wings spread might appear almost weightless. Fear, darkness, and repeated movement between a bright room and a black yard would make accurate identification difficult. Once the words "something landed" were in everyone's head, every shape could become another visitor. That theory explains a surprising amount without calling the witnesses liars, but it does not settle the whole night. It asks multiple adults to mistake birds for upright humanoids at close range, over several hours, at windows, on the ground, and above a doorway. It also asks us to believe shotgun blasts repeatedly miss animals close enough to touch the house. The owl theory gives the mystery feathers, but it does not make every claw mark in the story disappear. The government record is just as slippery. Military police from Fort Campbell were at the property, but they were responding to a reported gun battle, not conducting a specialized Air Force UFO investigation. The case later entered Project Blue Book's files, yet the surviving trail does not support the dramatic version in which investigators descended on Kelly, tested the soil, and issued a final scientific verdict. Some later references call it a hoax. J. Allen Hynek said it was listed as unidentified. Other researchers concluded it was recorded without enough investigation to justify either label. The fairest reading is that the Air Force knew of the incident, gathered secondhand material, and never performed the kind of immediate field work that could settle it. No landing impression was preserved. No bullet-damaged creature was recovered. No blood, tissue, photograph, or metallic fragment emerged. That absence is the alien explanation's greatest weakness. Yet a coordinated hoax also struggles. 11 people, including frightened children, would have had to maintain a complex story while summoning armed police to a property riddled with fresh gunfire. No costume was found, no participant confessed, and no clear mechanism was ever exposed. Every explanation solves one room of the farmhouse and leaves another door locked. 70 years later, the human story is still trying to crawl out from beneath the cartoon goblins. In March 2026, a small-town monsters crew visited Hopkinsville and interviewed Geraldine Sutton Stith, Lucky Sutton's daughter, along with Bill Thomas, who said she heard the gunfire that night and saw the aftermath the next day. Thomas was not inside the farmhouse, so he cannot prove what appeared at the windows, but his account matters because it anchors the commotion outside the family's testimony. Something happened loudly enough to carry across the dark. Something drove the occupants into a police station in visible terror. And when we strip away the green skin, inflated creature count, and invasion language, we are left with a stranger picture. Small figures approaching with raised hands, watching through screens, surviving gunfire, and never truly attacking. Maybe a meteor, owls, and panic combined to create one of America's most influential alien legends. Or maybe something descended beyond that well, crossed the fields, and spent the night studying the most dangerous creatures on the property, the humans inside. At dawn, the yard was empty, but perhaps that was only because whatever had been watching finally learned enough to leave. The real Hopkinsville mystery may not be whether 12 goblins invaded Kentucky. It may be whether something unknown approached peacefully and discovered that humanity's first response was to open fire.
That's what stays with me. The creatures had every opportunity to retaliate, yet all they seemed to do was watch, retreat, and return. Either the witnesses misunderstood everything outside, or those visitors displayed far more restraint than the people inside.
Which is an uncomfortable thought. We always imagine ourselves as the frightened victims in a close encounter. But perhaps the beings outside that farmhouse carried home a very different story.
Whatever happened, 11 people were frightened enough to abandon their home. Police found the physical aftermath of sustained gunfire, and no explanation has managed to account for every detail. Juniper, I'm closing the file, but I'm not convinced the eyes outside that window ever completely closed.
Maybe they were owls, aliens, or fear given a shape beneath the Kentucky moon. But for a few terrible hours, the farmhouse was surrounded by something no one inside could explain.
Tonight we return to the Sutton farmhouse and separated the documented encounter from the creature manufactured by decades of headlines and folklore. We found a brilliant object seeing beyond the well, silver figures approaching with raised hands, hours of gunfire, terrified witnesses, a major police response, and an empty yard that refused to surrender a single body, footprint, or final answer. Were the Hopkinsville Goblins extraterrestrial visitors, frightened animals transformed by darkness and panic, or something that still has no comfortable name? That part remains beyond the reach of the file. Thanks for joining us for episode 360 of The Shadow Frequency. Don't forget to stop by our website, shadowfrequencypodcast.com, for every episode, the blog, show notes, merchandise, platform links, and ways to ship port to show. We'll be back with another strange case pulled from the darker corners of history, folklore, and the unexplained. You guys want to say goodnight?
Good night, everybody. Keep looking into the stories people tell you are already solved, because sometimes the truth is hiding inside the details that were edited out.
Good night, and should you see a pair of enormous yellow eyes outside the window tonight, perhaps take a moment before reaching for the shotgun.
Good night, my shadowy friends. Lock the doors, watch the tree line, and remember, when something raises its hands in the darkness, it may not be surrendering. It may be showing you that it came unarmed.
This episode was conjured with a solemn vow to explore the unexplained while remaining bound to the truths that have been unearthed. All interpretations are speculative and offered only for your enlightenment and your entertainment.